Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's Brown Bag Lecture. And today we're privileged to have our very own Chandra Wong and Dianne Bersea give us a talk about Penticton's urban forest and the importance of trees in the urban environment. You all know Chandra. Dianne, Dianne is artist in residence at Leir House and quite an occasional Penticton Herald columnist as well. So between the two of them, they have considerable expertise on the topic. So please give a big hand for their presentation, and thanks again.
Thanks, Dennis. I wasn't nervous like 20 minutes ago. Now I'm like, oh no. All right, so I'm actually going to start at the very beginning, which is, for me, I saw this post on Facebook and it talked about how in Australia they have many trees and they've given each tree an email address. So you can write a message to the tree, and what they found is, rather than people just sending in messages, you know, this tree needs to have a branch cut off, it's dying or whatever, it needs to be watered, people would send in poetry to the trees. I know, exactly. So that really got me thinking about Penticton's trees, and I have to say that I really love Penticton's trees. There are some amazing trees. So what I hope that we're going to do today is make you aware of some of the historic trees that we have here. Hang on. And talk about some of the natural areas that we have. We're going to talk about the benefits of having an urban forest, because people are starting to see the trees that we have in our community as a resource, and we need to think of them as a forest. It's an urban forest, but it is nonetheless a forest. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges that our trees have, and then some of the things that you can do to help. All right, there we go. Oh, okay. And so I always like to play games. I like the interactive stuff. So I'm going to put photos of historic areas, and you have to try and guess where they are. Okay, so here we go. Is this going to work? There we go. Isn't that lovely? That photo is from the 1950s. I love it because of the tulips. Like, I can imagine them being yellow and red. And any guesses? It's an old picture for sure. Okay. Okay, here's another one in the same of the same location. Okay, and this one is around 1935. Okay, you can see the band shell. That's a little bit of a hint. Isn't that funny? All right, and here's Okanagan Lake. Here's the train station. The peach would be kind of way over on this side. Yeah. And here it is. That's more of a clue. So, okay, Gyro Park, you got it. Look at all those trees. Like, okay, we got some weeping willows here. And I think that first photo is somewhere back in here. So kind of the corner of Lakeshore and Main Street. Okay. All right, I think I have to stand here for it to see. All right, and the thing about Gyro Park is it has some lovely plane trees, London plane trees. And so there you can recognize them by their kind of puzzle piece bark, nice big scales, and they have leaves that are very much like a maple leaf, but maybe, you know, not quite as pointy in a maple leaf in this part here. And they're also the ones that have that dangly ball that hangs down, so like the pom-pom tree, okay? And we have so many London plane trees. This is the thing, when I started looking at trees, I started looking at the trees and trying to identify what they were. Like, my background is as a biologist, so I'm really good on native species. The ornamentals, not so much, but now I know more. And I'm sharing that with you. And we have, I love these two plane trees here. This is on private property, so I have a little booklet that I put together for, yeah, can I borrow that for a sec? Thank you. So there's a booklet here that you can get at the museum. I may not have had enough copies, but I can print off more. And it shows a lot of trees and natural areas in public spaces because, you know, everybody's got their private property. They may or may not want to have people coming by. But these two are just amazing. Like, this is my son standing in front. Look at how big these trees are, how tall they are. Just amazing. All right, so guess where this is? Okay. Yeah, you can see this stuff in the background. There's some clues. Okay, and this is an oak tree, and it's a really special oak. It's kind of actually very fitting because of the Queen passing away recently. This was the oak that came to Penticton to commemorate the coronation of George the Sixth. And does it? Like somewhere in here? Oh, I didn't know about that. That is a good question. And you know, I don't know everything about the trees in Penticton, but I did ask the parks folks, and I said, if I have any questions, can I pass them on to you? And they said, of course. In fact, tell us all the questions that people have. So I will ask that question. Okay. I'm trying to get this. Yeah. So this is an article that was in the 1937 Penticton Herald in April, and it's a report from the Women's Institute, which was an organization that for women, and they would share all kinds of information, and they had regular meetings. And I love this. The seedling oak tree from the Royal Nursery has been received by the local institute and will be planted. It was reported at the meeting. So that's it. That's all we have. It's like we got the tree, but there's nothing else that appears in the heralds that says this is when we planted it or where we. There was no made enough of a ceremony that it made the herald, anyways. So this is the courthouse here, and this is if we're standing on the sidewalk, we're on Lakeshore Drive, and Main Street is over here. So, and it's in, you can see it best from Lakeshore Drive, and if you walk along there, you can see that plaque. Yeah. All right. Guess where this is? Okay. Oh, and I have to, I want to make sure we have the dates here. So, this was taken in 1906. Okay. Okay, this is, I have now been afflicted by, I have to have 2 pairs of glasses. Okay, 1909. Okay, this one's from 1909. This one says what it is. This one is 1910, approximately, and it's near Green Avenue. Okay. And this one, I don't have enough hands here, is around 1910 as well. And if you guessed Okanagan River, you are on the right track. All right, so I love this photo. Like, so here's kind of where Red Wings would be. No, actually, wait a minute. Red Wings would be over here. Okay, this is what the Okanagan River used to look like. This is Hugh Leir's sawmill, which is kind of where Garden Works is now, and the car dealership. Okay, yeah, near the college. Here's Campbell Mountain. Okay, I know. Look at that. I know. This is what I love about my job is I look at these old photos and I'm like, oh my goodness. So, and this photo is from 1912, and it shows the Okanagan River and the floodplain. I'm just trying to, there we go. And Rick, I'm glad you're here in the audience because I found this on your website. This is the Friends of the Oxbows. It was in one of their newsletters. And it says at one time in Penticton's history, 11 creeks flowed into the Okanagan River. Over the past 100 years, the city has manipulated these streams to control flooding, and in the case of Ellis and Penticton creeks, built dams in the hills to provide water for irrigation and household use. Now, when I think about it, I know of 3 creeks. We have Shingle Creek, which is the one that comes in from along Green Mountain Road, and then we have Penticton Creek, which is more to the north, and then we have Ellis Creek, which is kind of central, but more to the southish, and then you start thinking about 11 creeks. Where did they go? I know there's the one that's over by Cherry Lane that kind of went underground. And so it's amazing to think that we had all of these creeks. Yes, George? Randy did a study a couple of years ago of all the underground creeks. That's right. And that's also how I know, because I got to hear about that too. So that's Randy Manuel was doing some research on that. So now, my battery's running out here. There we go. So I brought these ones in because this one is from the 1950s, and you can, or sorry, not the early 1940s, 1949, and that's the Wild Okanagan River. So you can see here's where we get some of our oxbows. Here's an actual oxbow here, and then it goes down. This is Okanagan Lake here. We've got Main Street coming down here. Okay, here's Fairview, Green Mountain Road. And then on this side, we've got Okanagan Lake here and the channel. And this photo was taken in 1969. And there was a reason why the river was channelized, because when we look at the archival photos and the research, it was between 1894 and 1948. There were at least 6 flooding events that took place. And the 1894 one was really big, and the 1948 one was the biggest since that flood. And so that made people think, oh my gosh, this is actually causing a lot of trouble. So we have to do something to take care of this for the buildings and the houses and the businesses. So they built the channel for that. Did the Americans put the channel in? I don't think so. It was, I think it was like local municipal government that worked on that. I see Karen shaking her head. It wasn't the Americans. So did you want to be pointed out like that? Sorry. All right. Now, for me, let's see where we're going. Okay, here we go. Well, it works out anyways, because these are black cottonwoods, and black cottonwoods are a native species, and they are found along riparian areas. So if you've got a lake, if you've got a river or a creek here in the Okanagan, you will find black cottonwood. They're the ones that everybody says I'm allergic to because the seeds are coming out and they're fluffy and it looks like it's snowing in June. And I'm not an allergist specialist, but I really have a question about that because the seeds are really quite big. You can see them without a microscope. And maybe it's just they get in your nose and it makes you sneeze. But are you actually allergic to seeds or are you allergic to pollen? So that's aside, definitely an aside. But we have these amazing black cottonwood trees. This is Lackawanna Park. Okay, and they are like huge. This is also Lackawanna Park, these trees. You will find cottonwoods along Ellis Creek. There's a lovely stand. They're one of my favorite trees because it's springtime because you start to smell the scent of the cottonwood trees. And that's what bees use to make propolis. So it's just, they are one of my favorite trees. And let's see if I can go back now. They are facing challenges because in order for the seeds to sprout, they need to go through a flooding event. That's how they evolve. That's how they make their living. And so we don't get that many flooding events because we've channelized our creeks and our rivers. So one of the things that's taking place right now on the east side of the channel, no, sorry, west side of the channel, is we've got the, now my insiltion is not very good, but I'm going to try, it's Comichinitqua floodplain re-engagement project. And what they've done is they've dug out an area and they've connected it to the channel. And so that allows the water to go in when we have flooding in the early spring. And it's great because it provides a lot of habitat. So I'm just going to read what I have here. So when the channelization took place, we lost half of the river's length. And you could see that, right? We had all these oxbows and then it went straight. And 90% of the riparian area was lost. And then that also isolated those floodplains, which meant that none of the seeds could sprout for the cottonwood. E-Community Place, which is the organization that is working with this re-engagement project, is trying to restore the floodplain. And so they did it without any major infrastructure changes. Like, in order to take the channel out, that would be a huge infrastructure change. But what they were able to do is have it just kind of a channel of it coming into their floodplain area. And then when it's restored, which, you know, it's on its way, I think it's in its 4th or 5th year now, it'll be a fish-free wetland, which is good for our little, the little fish, like the salmon spawn or the salmon fry. They want to be in a place where they're not going to be eaten by other species. It'll be a good place for frogs and salamanders and turtles and the Chinook salmon fry. So I just wanted to, I really like this project. It's interesting too because my son is in Queen's Park, and one of the teachers has been taking her students every year to help with planting the native species there. So it's amazing. They get bused there and then they walk back to Queen's Park. So I love those days because he's really tired and he goes to bed easily. All right. So, okay, guess where this is? Oh, you guys, didn't fool you at all on that one. All right, what I love here is you can actually see there's a ponderosa pine here, and this is probably in the background. You've got your black cottonwood. Okay, and I was able to find in the Herald's an article. Yeah, you got it, Lakeshore Drive, 1915 to 1920. And we're looking at the shadow here. So this is probably facing, this is the south side. So I would turn it around to, yeah. Oh, I wanted to read this one. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is that all that area that we have along Lakeshore Drive from Winnipeg Street to west of the Okanagan River was donated by Mr. Shatford, who became Senator Shatford. And he donated it to the community at, like, I think they paid, the city council paid $1 or something like that in order to have it. And that was one of those gifts in perpetuity that is available to the citizens of Penticton through his foresight. And that, I mean, what I hope to show with some of these other photos and places that we go is that there was a lot of foresight over 100 years ago about what they wanted Penticton to look like. And that was one of the things, as Senator Shatford said, you know, I want the community to have this and have access to lakefront. All right, guess where this is? It does. Really? I want you to try and guess where this is. Okay. Oh, I know, it's Skaha Lake. All right. It is Skaha Lake. And I wanted to point out here, look at all those trees. I know. Okay. And, oh, I'm jumping ahead. I have to remember what year that was. So that first one was 1905, and the second photo is 1915. And what I love is the stories about early Penticton, so it became a town site in 1908. And people would like pack up the wagons or pack up the carriages, and they would go down to Skaha Lake, and they would camp there because that was sort of the weekend thing to do. And can you imagine now, we like, I just need to go down to Skaha Lake, and you get the car, and 10 minutes later you're there, right? So it was a whole nother experience. And I know that we have a lot of ponderosa pine there. And when I first moved here, there had just been this huge windstorm in either 1907 or 2007, 2008, and knocked down a lot of those trees. And when you look at it today, it's like, it's hard to believe that it was really thick, a really thick forest. Okay, and so that allows me to talk about the native species I do know. So we've got ponderosa pine, and we've got Douglas fir. Okay, the pine are the ones with the super long needles and the really spiky cones, and the Douglas fir are the ones that have these little bracts that look like mouse tails coming out of them. And they're both fire adapted species. So when we have a small or a light fire go through, their bark is thick enough that they can resist the burning. I mean, they'll burn the outside, but the tree stays alive if there's a light fire. When we get the higher and hotter fires, then they're not able to survive as easily. And then the pine trees, when it gets hot, their cones open up and the seeds are released. So it's almost like they're kind of like, we're ready for a fire. All right, guess where this is? Okay, that says Norway spruce, Picea aves, and then it's too small for me to read. Oh, you're good. I heard it. All right, so this article it's in the cemetery, Lakeview Cemetery. And I love this article because it's basically the editor chastising the citizens of Penticton for not coming out and planting trees in the cemetery. Mr. Young says that not more or not less than 100 men promised to be on hand. How many do you think showed up? 100? No, sir. 50? No. 25? Not even that. Just exactly 5 citizens of the town reported for work at the cemetery on Saturday, not counting the boys. 10 schoolboys, thank you. 10 schoolboys under the direction of Mr. Calder journeyed up the hill on Saturday, and each one did a man's work, and that helped a lot. I know, isn't that a great story? So when you go up to the cemetery, you can take a look and see the spruce trees, right? Can you imagine what it'd be like without those trees? Like, it's such a, it's funny, I take my boys everywhere. So we went up to the cemetery and I said, here, look at these trees. And then I took a few photos with them in it. I chose the ones without them. But they, we looked at all the headstones. And this particular area is the military section. And my oldest is really into military. So it was really interesting to go through and read all of these. But it was a really pleasant place to be because of those trees. As soon as we got out into the sun, it was really hot. So, you have these people coming up to pay respects to the dearly departed, and there's a lovely place that's been set up. And this article is, when I date the article, it means that the trees are over 100 years old, which, wow. Yeah. All right. I put this one in. Maybe you can guess where this is. Yeah, it's Windsor Avenue, the boulevard there. And I put this one in because it's got 2 trees that are very unique for Penticton. And I was talking to a local arborist about it, and he said, you have to tell them about the Camperdown elms. You have to tell them about the Camperdown elms. And I'm like, what are the Camperdown elms? And he said, there are 2 out of 6 Camperdown elms that were brought to the Okanagan in 1919. And this is a variety of elm that was discovered by a gardener for the Earl of Camperdown in Great Britain. And so are lucky enough to have these two trees. And they're both planted on Windsor Boulevard, one on each end. And the photo that we're looking at is the bigger of the two. And when you go in to look at these trees, it's amazing. They've got all these branches coming out of the bark and the trunks, which I've never seen before. Usually when you see the trunk and the branches, you just see trunk and branches. And they've got your typical elm leaves with the serrated edges and the straight veins on it. If you go there now, you'll notice that they're a little brown. They have not been doing well with the heat and the drought. But in their glory, this is what they look like. All right. Why is this not working? There we go. All right, guess where this is? Okay. This is the gratuitous trees section of the presentation. This you might recognize. That's where you live? So then, I'm going to tell them where you live. This is on the other side. This is Latimer Street, and it has these three amazing maple trees, and they're so big that they're changing the sidewalk. It used to be that they had sidewalk which went like this and then went like this and then like this and like this, but they took the sidewalk out completely and it's now gravel, which makes more sense. These are in the City of Penticton tree protection bylaw, and they're on public property. So, yeah, they're quite amazing. All right. So what? Okay. All right. So now I have to look at my notes here. So there's this term called environmental generation amnesia. And I think it's really important that we're aware of it. And it's related to another one that's called the shifting baseline syndrome. And basically, what it says is that when people see their natural environment when they're growing up, they assume that that's the way that nature should be. And then as they age and go by and they realize that there's been degradation from what they knew when they were growing up. But the kids that come along in the next generation, they see that degradation and they say, well, this is normal. This is what it should look like. And so over time, it shifts the baseline of what was there and what we had. And so for me, knowing what was there in terms of historic, the historic that we had, the history that we have for these trees was really important for me to show you what it used to look like. And what else? If we grow up in an urban setting, so we have a lot of kids who they may not necessarily go off into the bush or off into the woods, they never experience wilderness and nature, and so they only think that nature is like cultivated gardens and parks and that kind of thing. So I think it's really important for us to remember this when we are thinking about what we want to have for Penticton's urban forest. Do we want to have some natural areas that look more foresty? Do we want to have some other areas that are more park-like? And we have to kind of plan for that. So I feel like I want to read this because I want to make sure that we understand. As we grow up, we look around ourselves and determine that the natural world that surrounds us is in the normal state of nature. And that becomes our baseline, that we measure any degradation that takes place in nature in our lifetime. And then along comes the next generation and they do the same thing. So eventually what has become a degraded state of nature for one generation is the normal state of nature for the next generation. And on it goes, generation after generation. And with each generation, the baseline shifts. And that's from James McKinnon, who wrote a book on the shifting baseline. And one of the things that is sort of a way to kind of remember to avoid the degradation is to look at rewilding areas, so improving the natural areas for humans, but also for non-human species. Because what we find is that it benefits the humans, but it also benefits the non-human species. And it's also a great way for us to take the carbon that's in the atmosphere and put it back into plants, animals, because we're all made of carbon. So the more places that you have for trees, especially some of our really big trees, then you're using up that carbon. And we know, I'm hoping most of us know that carbon is one of those things that's kind of fueling climate change. And so for me, we need to know what was here before and what our former residents have done for us. And so that's why I wanted to look at the past. And then what's going to happen now is Dianne is going to take over, and she's going to talk about where we are now with the present, and then we can determine where we want to go with the future. So we're going to have a little technical shifting around because we've each got our own presentation. So if you don't mind, just pausing for a minute. Talk amongst yourselves.
Can you hear me? Good. We're on. All right. Now where's the gizmo? There it is. Did I do that right? Feels okay. Okay. All right. Oh, we're at the end. We're at the wrong end. And lights. That looks like the beginning to me. All right. Well, thank you to Chandra for setting the scene and understanding kind of where we've come from. I'm going to take you forward into the present and possibly into the future. This is, again, a Windsor Boulevard tree that kind of caught my attention shortly after moving into town. Really startling to find a boulevard like this even in our town. And this is the famous plane trees, London plane tree. It's also known as the sycamore. And that brings a song to my mind every time I hear it. At any rate, pretty spectacular. We'll just see how this works. Oops, pushed the wrong button. Which one changes it? This one. Okay. Are you going to change? I guess I have to no, there we go. Okay. For me, it all began not there. All right. It began with just moving into town from a rural setting where there were lots of trees, and suddenly realizing that there were some spectacular trees in the city, as well as areas that didn't have a lot of trees. And I started to write about it. The first article there is right there. I can't even remember, but it said something about, get a little blurry. I can't read it, doesn't matter. At any rate, my point was that the quality of life was based on the green space and the natural setting of Penticton. And then I started doing a bit more research, and I went into the OCP and the bylaws and looking around and finding out what was going on. And I built well, I didn't build the wall, actually. I started putting things on the wall that I came across. And they started to really speak to me about what was happening. Right here we have the OCP, a vision for the future. And here's some of the buildings that are actually being put up. This piece is actually in a notebook here if you want to look and see what it actually says. And then this is the North Gateway Plan. That was quite a start for me when I realized I was right in the middle of it. This is part of the, I believe it's the OCP or the part, I can't remember, but is a diagram of the trees in Penticton, and you'll notice the intense green area here. That is not downtown, just in case you don't notice. This is downtown. And the darker colors are the more treed areas. And even at that, and you can't read this, but you'll see it again, we have 12% tree canopy in this town, which is considered minimal, which is a start, because when we just see the city as we want to see it, this is what we see, Lackawanna Park. Oops, got to point it over there. There we go. This is a view that just gives you a different perspective, and mostly what I want to do is give you a different perspective. This is from up near Vancouver Avenue looking down over town. There's, whoops, hit the wrong button again. Bing. There's too many buttons. Do you know what that is? Where's that? Lackawanna Park, exactly. What's this over here? Exactly. Well done. Okay, so you get this perspective, looks like lots of trees. And, oops, did I hit? Yes, go. Now I'm going to play the same game. Do you know where this is? Exactly. Well done. Rose garden. Come on, turn. And I just wanted to remind us what areas like down around the riverside looks like in a different time of year. It's spectacular, colorful. You can just breathe it in. How about this one? Yeah, I must admit I spend a lot of time in that area, so you end up with tree pictures from the riverside area. This is I believe it's a big maple. I'm trusting my memory here. Where's this? Yeah. And what I find, this is, now I've forgotten the name of the tree, but it comes up again, fortunately. This is what it's all about. Where there's trees, there's people. And if you walk around this town and you find the areas where there's no trees, you will also not usually find a lot of people. I must admit this was probably a market day, so there were a lot of more people around. But, if you walk up Main Street from the lake and go at least to 400 or 500 block, the trees start to get smaller and smaller, and the city looks less and less occupied. Okay, this is another perspective. There's the rose garden you can see up in the corner. There's the wetland maple elm area near the wetland bridge in the Riverside Park. And on the far corner over here, you have the Nanaimo Square area. There's something else to take note of. What is that green? What's this stuff? What does that mean? What does that tell us? Well, actually, it's telling us that those are the areas that are protected natural areas and parks. And again, when you reflect that Penticton has a 12% canopy, this is a big swath of it. So it's kind of misleading. There's big areas, especially downtown, and I'll show you some more areas like this, which is supposedly in the Northwest Development Plan, going to be all covered with trees and all kinds of glorious things. I have noticed, however, that the development is moving much faster than the city, so that the developments are happening in here without any of that glorious activity that's going to give us trees over there. And this is downtown. There's the name of the tree that you just saw a moment ago in the picture outside the Nanaimo Square. A carbonus, hornbeam, fernwood, or ironwood, I mean, and musclewood. Musclewood, interesting. And I couldn't resist the fact that I noticed that one rooftop had solar panels. Okay, how about this picture? Does anybody know where that is? Bassett Street. Bassett is, I believe it's Bassett. If you challenge me, I'll get really confused. At any rate, this tree, whoops, wrong one, right there, is a glorious maple, which we will now see right there. And it's 35 meters high, which means it's well over 100 feet. And I don't actually have the date it was planted. One of the things I failed to mention when I was pointing out the parks area, all the trees in the areas that were green on that previous diagram or map are protected. They are in city land and they are protected up to a point, because I can show you in a minute trees that have disappeared that are public land trees. But this side of the street, the west, this is the west side of Bassett. I thought this was kind of neat. These trees are Tilia, some of them anyway, linden, basswood, and lime. And again, I'm just kind of zeroing in. I found looking at the city from above, this is all from the city database, by the way, that's available to anybody to look at. It's quite remarkable. There's that tree we were looking at just now, the big one on Bassett. And that also gives you an idea about some of the other trees. This area used to be quite heavily treed at one time. This is the motel area just off Power Street. And this is Westminster, by the way. That's about to be developed. This is now gone. There is nothing there but a piece of bare land. These are on private land. This tree was on the edge of private land, right up to the sidewalk. The developer actually kept it right up until the city decided to put in a new sidewalk, and then it disappeared. This is a huge maple on the corner of Bassett and Westminster, but it is on private land, and it is, this is all development. This is a development that's already happened, and I must say, credit must be given when it's due. I've been quite impressed with the trees and the vegetation that they've planted on that particular piece of property. But there were big cottonwoods there before that. Come on, go. There we go. These are boulevard trees. This is, oh gosh, Caribou Street. And this is rain trees. Aren't they unique? Look at these seed pods. This was just taken a week or so ago. But look at the difference. Isn't this a glorious place to walk? And the other unique thing that I've come across is how these kind of trees protect you as a pedestrian here, if there's any sort of movement on this out here that's not favorable. So it has many benefits, many benefits, which we'll address. That's right here. That's this tree is that tree. And that's that street. I must admit, I kind of noticed this tree myself, and then had to go out on Power Street to have a look at it from a different direction. So actually I cheated, I used Google Earth. Okay, there you go. This is the truth of the situation. And as I pointed out already, most of the treed areas, you can see this is 12%, that's this area. And it's a good part of this area is also designated conservation. So I'm not absolutely certain, and I can't tell you exactly what that means. I assume it means that there's more challenges if you're wanting to develop it and demonstrate how your development would not have, or what effect your development would have. Of course, this area, not this area wholly, but I believe it's somewhere in there. Somewhere in there they're developing right now. This is the North Gateway. As you can see, again, these are light areas, not a heavily treed. This is down as low as 8%. 20 to 40% is considered optimum. So Penticton, even though we have this glorious town between two lakes on a floodplain that has water beneath it very close to the surface that can support some amazing tree activity, we're not on sort of the high point in terms of achieving meaningful, what's considered meaningful. This was as recent as 2020, April 2020, actually. Okay, from Penticton's official community plan, that was signed in 2021. Natural areas and parks. 22% of the land area in city limits is identified as natural and conservation areas, and those I've just pointed out. And they're not intended for urban growth development. but are established to help maintain important ecological characteristics in natural areas. Further, 4% of the land is designated as parks, which is fully protected from development. Yeah, sort of. Anyway, that's around 26%. 25% is considered minimal park in general terms for many communities. And then this one throws me right off. Whoops, that really threw me off. This one half of Penticton's land-based natural areas, parks, and agricultural lands is not intended for urban development. So obviously that's taking in roads and things that are not natural or anything. It's just only half of the city is intended for urban development. So it is said. Okay, let's have a look at how that actually reads in the reality of life. This is, as you can, I think you could probably pick that out, Skaha Park, just the south end of town. There's what the Walmart, I believe it's Walmart? Yeah, that should be Walmart. And right behind it is this property, and this part is the Kempe property. Just have a look. There's the old oxbows. It's kind of interesting to me. This, of course, is where the river used to go, and this is the channelization. We do have some trees along the channel, but if you look, a lot of them are not in the best of health. I'm hoping this is not sounding too harsh, but the reality is quite painful when we take it in. Okay, this is the property I'm referring to. You're probably all familiar with it. It's now been approved for a development. But the interesting thing is, this is not part of the property. What is it? Does anybody know? It's actually designated park and recreation property. So this piece is park, or could be. I don't think there's any development on it. I think you can access it though. But it's also an oxbow in there. There's wetland in there too, I believe. At any rate, there's quite a few trees on here. And I have the actual development itself. It's hard to tell exactly what will not be preserved, but these are mature trees of varying types. These ones along this edge are part of this park's protected area, so those smaller trees that you see are protected. But the ones within the Kempe property itself can be removed. I can't tell you the exact development. I went around for a while putting up signs like this. I could have been a park. Tree benefits. What do trees do for us? Better move along. That's that beautiful maple again. Give off oxygen, reduce erosion, reduce stormwater runoff, provide wildlife habitat, reduce pollution that might enter wetlands and waterways, and store carbon, reduce stress and anxiety, improve mental and physical health. I'm only going to focus on a few of those because we can't cover them all anyway, but in the group here, what ones stand out for you? Which ones do you think are more important than others, perhaps? Yay! Yeah, if we don't have our mental health, we're in trouble. Okay, so this is just another view of the same thing that I took notice. Oh, sorry. I took note of some that impressed me. Having a view of trees outside your window will shorten a hospital stay. All these are accredited. I haven't put up the information, but they are from other sources. Having just 10, I'll deal with this one down here. Let's go right here. Trees lower stress and noise, and they beautify communities. And this one's important too, I think. Asthma rates fall when children have more trees in their neighborhood. Oops, whoops. Did we change? Nope. Come on, go. There we go. This one I like. Just 10 more trees on your block and you will feel years younger. Who's not going to like that, eh? I think it's true. And I'm going to move on here, and I'm going to suggest that maybe you would like to just close your eyes and imagine a beautiful green space that you like. This is Jan Arden's comment. I actually have permission to use it. And I think it's really important. So if you can kind of just drift into a nice space in a cool spot under a tree, this is what she had to say. It's been a good summer. The heat feels wonderful to me. I know it's different out where I am because I live in the trees. The temperature is considerably cooler than in the city. Trees are my secret. I have a few thousand of them, and they all work together to keep things comfortable for all of us who live in them and near them. It's a marvel of nature, and I walk into their mighty, intricate boughs and instantly feel calm and comfortable. She also has gone on to say, if you're lucky enough to get older, and I've made it, you start hearing the birds and you start wanting to stand under the shade cast by a very old tree. Why? Because you feel alive, really alive. I agree with her. These are house finches in early plumage. The male will go bright red on the head. Yes? Yep. Yeah, I absolutely agree, and we're going to address that very quickly. This is the value of a tree. This is one of the critical benefits along with your mental health, I think, because it's carbon storage and it absorbs CO2. And I've came across this graphic here. One tree can absorb as much carbon in a year as a car produces while driving 42,000 kilometers. One tree. A single tree produces approximately 118 kilograms of oxygen per year, and it can also, a single tree can absorb 907 kilograms of carbon dioxide. So this is really one of the critical things: our mental health, our physical health, and the benefits of stabilizing climate to some degree anyway. Again, this is just the issue of how the city, as you can see, reflects a lot of heat because it's concrete, and I pointed out those areas already that are kind of generate more heat than others. I went around with a thermometer and I've been testing the temperature everywhere in town. This is a temperature reading of 53 degrees, 52 anyway, 53 degrees Celsius. That's 120 something, 124 in Fahrenheit. And that was taken just outside the library here at the Library Museum, green space. The hot temperature was taken right over there in that heat. I moved my bike. And then I put this under the trees right here on the grass. And that's, on the previous one, it was 52 or 3. And here it's 26 on the grass. That's a difference of 26 degrees. 26 degrees in a space of 20 feet. That's a benefit of the trees. I did a few more. This is down on the lakeshore. That's in the shade, obviously. This is in the sun, a variance of 16 degrees. This is over near Skaha Lake Park. In the shade, it wasn't a day that the shade, this is not a particularly shady spot, but it was about 32 and well over 50 in the full sun, just outside, right over there, a variance of 20 degrees. I don't think we should minimize that kind of impact, because how you plant trees, where you plant them, how old they are is very important. These are what are called heat islands. And that's, of course, downtown. That's over near the you know where it is. That's the place. Yeah, there you go. And some industrial areas, they tend to be heat islands because there's no trees. One thing that struck me as really interesting, this is the industrial area up off Industrial, I think. And look at this. Somebody's put a lot of trees in there. I've got to go. One of the things I'd like to see happen is awards, rewards, certificates going out to the people that have done really unique things that are concerned about our environment. And there you can see Walmart parking lot, 53 degrees. No, and it's possible. There are parking lots even here in town that have trees in the dividers. So it's not like we can't do these things, we just haven't. This is how trees can increase your property value for up to 15%. By advertising tree-lined streets, green spaces, natural vistas, proximity parks. This is how we sell Penticton. This is how we sell our town. But we had to fight to save these elms on Westminster. This is Power Street going through here. This is Westminster. There are 4 trees, 4 elms. And mind you, they are American elms, actually grafted, strangely enough, to Siberian or Russian elms. And they're in a little bit of trouble right now anyway, so the developer may get his wish. But I put this sign up. If you've seen somebody carrying around a green sign with the heart on it, that's me. Okay, thank you. Well, we're near, and here's evidence too of how it's marketed to the world. Can anybody date this photograph? Go ahead, give me a date. Well, it had to be before what happened up there, and I think that's at least 8 years ago. And the way it looks, I'd say it's well before that even, and somebody else even said that the possibility exists that this even predated the blowdown in 2008. So this photograph might be 15 years ago, and here's what the developer is actually working with. I'm not saying they are doing a bad job, but you can make your own judgment on that. This was treed. And this is what's happening to many trees. This is on Westminster and Power. And the thing I remember from this site is that I talked to the people who lived in this house, 10-year renters, nowhere to go. And on the days just before they had to move, they were still trying to figure out how to save some long-stemmed roses and some ancient lilacs. This is the Riverside Drive. That was a motel, a mobile home park. Those are probably black cottonwoods. Black cottonwoods. Stumps here were elms. This was against the parking lot. So this is how that actually looked. This photograph is from the city database 2017. This is the database, 2020. And these are the only trees that remain. These are city trees, and they're the Acer elms that everybody admires when they turn beautiful, and they're beautifully shaped as well. That's all city property and protected. There are now rain swells here a little bit, and then this is all gone except for those 2 trees. Okay, I'll go fast, really fast.
Well, this is what I'm thinking. If there's anybody who needs to leave, they have a place or whatever.
Okay. Okay. Nobody's okay. We have a few. Just anybody else? I can't take any questions till I'm done. Yeah, I'll tell you all about myself if you stay. Okay. Okay, let's just back up for 1 second. I'll try and, okay, so we're looking at, you're welcome. This area here, the view you're about to see is from standing here looking that way. And go. There we go. I know this is probably more shocking than the reality of it, in the sense that this development has planted some trees in here. Of course, One of the things is they're only about 6 feet high right now and have about 10 leaves on them. It'll take a while for they look like those big London plane trees we started with. Why mature trees are important. New plantings take 10 to 20, 30 years to reach meaningful canopy size, and this is some historic trees planted in the 1930s. That's actually in the Leir property over there off Duncan. There's maples, cotton, but not sure, fir, ginkgo, a whole bunch of stuff there. And they were planted by the Leir family in the 1930s. And this is the City of Penticton bylaw, Appendix A, of the trees that are identified as significant or heritage trees. City-owned trees in bold, you can see that there. I worked it out by counting up all the trees on both sides, those that are on private or public land and those that are in non-public land. And I came up with 68.75% of heritage trees are unprotected. I'm sorry to tell you that. The other truth of that is that those heritage trees you just saw in the previous picture are not on that heritage list. It hasn't been updated for some time. Anyway, this is what Penticton could look like, and does in parts of the town. So we cannot deny the fact that trees exist, and they're beautiful, and there's beautiful areas of the town that are well treed with glorious trees. What can we encourage our city to do? First of all, I want to point out something about this picture. Has anybody got anything they want to say about these trees right here? They're dead. Yes, they're dead. This is a fairly recent development, and these were trees that were probably part of the development plan, but they also have to be maintained. And not only do they have to be maintained, it might have been wiser and possibly an expense to the developer to put a retaining wall here and bring this back square so that these trees weren't on a slope, so that any water that did land in this area just went down there. So they weren't getting, I know, I see this looks a little dead, but I'm not sure these are sort of surviving. At any rate, so what do we need to do? Complete urban forest management plan. Update heritage tree registry. Revise and update city bylaws related to trees on public and non-public land with specific guidelines for preservation and installation of trees. Enforceable practices to protect and maintain trees at least 4 years after planting. That gives them a good start. 4 years is considered a good start. And encourage leading edge design concepts with trees and green space in mind. And I think that's one place where we really fall down, is there's some glorious and very talented architects, developers, and planners out there that could be more imaginative about what we do and give us more green space and trees. And what can we do? Well, we can plant a tree, we can care for a tree, learn healthy tree maintenance, because it's a little more than, it's just like any other growing thing, it has its own needs. Support tree planting and maintenance initiatives. In other words, encourage your council, mayor, your planning department, whatever, to institute things that will be more protective of the city, trees. This is my personal favorite, compost leaf waste. I discovered that cottonwood and alder and some of the other deciduous trees make great compost. These guys don't so much, the maples and some of the other trees, but it's a great way to use it. If you're going to have leaves, you might as well make use of them. And get involved if you're concerned about a tree. There is now a Facebook page for tree people. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention. As you can see, I'm a tree advocate. If you want to talk to me anytime, please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dianne. And just to wrap up, one of the other things you can do is I've put paper and pens and scissors and tape over on the 2 tables in the back. And if you have a wish for Penticton's trees, put it on that piece of paper, and we'll make sure that it gets to the Parks Department. If you have questions that you want to know, put it on the piece of paper and let us know, and we can make sure you have contact information so that we can get back to you and answer your question. Thank you very much for coming out to the Brown Bag Lecture today. And we really appreciate it. Dianne and I will be here to answer questions and talk about trees because we love them so much. And I would just like to say thank you for coming, and thank you for your donation because it helps us put on programs like this with the museum. And then for next week, we will have Laurie Goldman and David Cassian, and they're going to be talking about recycling in BC. And David said, bring your recycling, and if you're not sure whether you can recycle it or not, he can tell you. So hopefully we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.